Hayat şeye ba yazı yinişe sena jeymişle ana aklı başış jeyim nasane daşı çey zıfka adaşınalı. And that is how I identify as a Dunbar woman. And right now I reside in Farmington, Mexico with my wife and our two cats and our dog. And I'm currently in my studio actually right now. I came about, I think, my practice, or I started out, just the same as everybody else, doing coloring books and crayons. And I grew up with two brothers, so they were really, how would you say, um, they grew up with with the skateboarding era, like comic books and everything like that. So I picked that up and I really looked up to them. And one of my brothers, he turned out to be an artist, and he's self-taught. He would mimic his favorite comic book artists, and he would actually challenge me to do the same. And just from him, challenging me, that's what made me become the artist that I became. And one of the things that I realized too is that some of the our creation stories, the Navajo creation stories, they were kind of similar to some of the superheroes that that we would read about. And I always wondered, um, uh, it didn't phase me probably until like high school, because I didn't really how would you say, I was gay then, so I've always known that since I was 4 years old. So me grasping like womanhood was just not really my thing. So I would always act like a boy and I try to do boy things. And it wasn't until like in high school that I really, realized, that I'm a woman and I should be proud to be a woman. And that's when I started to realize that, in comic books, like there wasn't really uh, an image that I could relate to. And that's one of the things that I always wanted to create. And it wasn't until like in college that I really, held on to that and wanted to create my own, my own themes, my own depiction of my experiences, growing up, and always, always being made fun of about, being a tomboy. And when my brother, the one who actually got me, into drawing, he would pretty much like try to teach me how to be a girl. And I thought that was always really weird. And I never used to like that. And like he would really push me to do girl things. And I used to, I didn't like it at all. So I used that. And, I was participating in, the Pala Circle. And I would always, I would also challenge my brothers because, like I would challenge, my parents. And, just those experiences made me start, drawing the things that I do now. And that's basically women warriors. Because for me, there wasn't a really a place for me to do that, to be myself, it was always gender based. And I really didn't like that. And I always wanted to do boy things. And that's how it was when it came to, dancing in palace. That's when I started dancing in the boys category ever since I was 4 years old. So a lot of that experience really made me push myself to, depict the woman warriors that I do now. And it also came a lot with some of the stories some women that used to share with me, throughout, high school, um, being victims of rape, being victims of child molestation, all of that stuff that just made me want to give the power back to a woman. And that's another reason why that I started drawing women warriors, because there's really not many woman warrior stories out there. I mean, there's Geronimo, and like I know he had a scout, and she was a woman. Her name was Lozen. So like that's one of the things I've always had a thirst for and wanted to really. I wanted to learn more about women warriors, and since it wasn't really in our history books or there were stories, but it was just really hard to get those stories from certain people, um, and that's how it all started. And I also went to a graphic design school, so that made me, you know, uh, have more experience with technology, and that's how I started doing illustrations and Illustrator and stuff like that. So that's how that. That didn't really come about until probably like in college. I was probably going to school at Institute of American Arts, and I remember a woman. I don't remember what gallery she's from, but she actually said that to me. She's like, "How does it feel to be a feminist?" And like, I'm not a feminist. Like, I never really understood it until like later, and I'm still having a hard time with that, just because I feel like gender to me is really important, and I mean it's to the degree where um, gender for me has been really, uh, how would you say, a really challenging thing for me since I was a kid, and just the whole gender thing. It just really gets me angry, like when a little girl wants to, play with, fire trucks, let her, and if a little boy wants to play with Barbie dolls, let him. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just let them be kids. Let them play with whatever they want to play with, and let them be whoever they want to be. And don't, you know, just it's just really important to me because me and my wife, we're trying to we're ready to have kids and we're ready to have a family, and that's one of the things I would always talk about is that, if we have a little boy, like, is he gonna want to be a ballerina, like stuff like that. Like, we're definitely going to support them, like, 100%, because that's what my parents did for me, ever since I was growing up, and it was really important. It really changed a lot of things for me, and it made me do things that I didn't want to do, but I still did them just because, I knew in my heart that it was right for me, even if people didn't see it that way. So I guess that's the best way that I can describe. I don't know. I see so many different women in all of those three women that I illustrated. Like the first one that's in the middle, she's really important because she I based her on my mother. She's the mother of war, and she's she's been through so much trauma that it's just amazing, like how much my mother has given based on that, and how much she's put herself aside just to, raise us kids. And it wasn't until, like in college was when I heard the stories of what happened to her, and it really broke my heart, and that's really why, like, it was really important for me to hold that memory and that depiction of how I saw my mother, and that's it's we all go through different wars, whether it's, mental or spiritually or physically, and I guess she's the main reason why there there's I started, drawing women warriors the way they do. And I've also, seen, in the other two women that are in there, they they depict, my little sister. She's been through some trauma as well, but they're my mother and my sister both doing very well. My little sister has her own family, even though doctors said that she could never have, kids, and it was just really amazing how they blossomed from that trauma. That they didn't take it out of the world. They didn't, all that violence just they didn't. They just made the world even more beautiful. And I just always wanted to share that with everybody because you don't know what people have gone through until they tell you their story. My wife also has been through a lot of trauma, so like it's really important that I show how much these women mean so much to me, and like how I see them. That's what I want to share with everybody. And I see my little sister in some of those women. I see my wife in some of them. I even see their her sisters in some of them too. So like, there's just so many stories out there that women have gone through, and just women and people of color have gone through. So like, it's just kind of like a reminder that no matter how much trauma somebody's been through, like they never stop giving, they never stop loving, they never stop giving you their heart, and it's just so amazing. And that's the reason why I like that trauma. It's funny because like my wife, she has two older sisters, and she's the youngest. And it's funny because like when we were all living in Colorado, I noticed that they lived so many like they lived quite a ways from each other, but they were still not too far apart, and it kind of reminded me of stars, and it was just like, me and my wife, we lived in Denver, and then her older sister lived in Monument, and then like her other sister lived in Colorado Springs, so it kind of reminded me of the three sisters, and it also reminded me of the star constellation of the three sisters, and I think it was an Orion's belt. So that's where that came from, and I just thought that was really funny and unique, and like it's you're just like, what? So that's another reason why that I call it the three sisters, and in honor of my wife and her two sisters, and just, and then like as far as like the star constellation, I think it has a lot to do with that too, like just the 5-pointed star, the 6-pointed star, and the 7-pointed star. Like it's kind of like, no matter how far apart they are, like they're still sisters, and that's what keeps them connected. That's, and it's funny because like when it comes to me, I have my little sister and two little brothers, and like it's just as far as like siblings are concerned, like it just, no matter how far apart you are, like you're still connected by blood, and you're still, yeah. So I think that's what it really comes down to is when it comes to the colors that I use, red, white, and black, and I think that's has a lot to do with our creations, and like the blood flowing through our veins. Like it just means so many different things. And red is a really powerful color. And black and white, it just, I don't know. I think those colors just go very well together. And I know it's a lot of people um, probably would want me to use different colors, but I don't know. I'm just so stuck on those colors, and they're just really powerful. It also reminds me of the Navajo basket, because that's basically the color is just red, white, and black. Just growing up, I would see different graphics on the skateboards, like the Screaming Hand from Santa Cruz. Just the quality and like the black lines. I think I really wanted to depict that, and also like kind of make it my own. But there was a lot of artists that I really loved to mimic, and that's Todd McFarlane. He created Spawn. I remember he took Spider-Man to a whole new level. He's very detail oriented. Like his stuff is just really awesome. And there's also Michael Turner. And I know there's a skateboard artist. I think his name is Jim Phillips. I think he did that. I can't remember if he did the Screaming Hand or not, but there's just so many depictions of the skateboard world, and like some of the graphics that they did kind of reminded me of the comic book artists, and I think I think that's just copying them since I was in high school. Like it just makes sense to kind of use that and like create my characters. And one thing that I really like too is drawing hair. Um, and the hair is a really important part of our stories. And hair is a really powerful thing to when it comes to like our it's just really complicated to explain things. um, but even like there was a guy, Afro Samurai. Like I've always wanted to see my characters come alive in that form in animation. I still keep talking about it, and I still keep wondering if if my characters will ever become a part of an animation. And I hope they do, but I'm not sure. Yeah, like I don't know where that's gonna go, but I'm hoping that one day that'll happen. But it'd be really interesting. Yeah. Cultural appropriation. That's one of the main things that really that's it's definitely a problem. Um, Especially when you come across somebody who says, I'm Native American, like it's just, you know. Yeah, we're Native Americans, but we're also part of a tribe, like me, I'm Navajo, I'm also White Mountain Apache and Comanche. Um, so it's kind of like it's really disrespectful to not really know. It's because I'm a journalist and a photojournalist, and so when I do interviews, I always make sure that when I come across somebody who's a person of color, I always make sure to ask them, like what tribe they are, or is there anything else that you want to, you know, um, you know, to depict their identity when it comes to their names. Um, so if I were just to say somebody who's Native American, like it just wouldn't be appropriate. And when it comes to like drawing, even that is, um, it's, like with me, I definitely stick with my culture and my stories, and make sure that it's a really touchy subject, because like just like with the hats on the women that I use, it's very gendered. And I noticed that when it came to older men who'd see some of my artwork, they would question it. They would get really angry. I don't know why they would feel that way. I don't know why they would get so, I don't know what it was, but it's just like, I don't know. But, it's, I guess it is what it is. And, um, yeah.